Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with the Superlative podcast. Please listen to aBlogtoWatch's other podcast, aBlogtoWatch Weekly, where we talk about the latest watch news and reviews. Today on Superlative, my guest is Nathan Clapp. He is the founder of Wraven Labs. Nathan, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Nice to be here. Excited to be here.
So what we're going to talk about a lot of the show, Nathan, is the accessory and hobby side of the watch collecting world. You came on my radar because of a product you made, and I think it's funny how niche this is. Like, it's practical, but it's very niche, that allows you to lean your forearm and wrist outside of a car while driving it in such a fashion so as not to scratch, presumably, the car and the watch against one another, a safe pad. And so the idea is that this is a behavior you do a lot. Your wrist is in the same place, and you have this ongoing desire to do this while protecting both of these things. And you would agree that's a niche category of tool, right?
It's very niche, and I knew that going into it. Yes, it's a weird product. We can just say that. We don't even have to say niche. It's a weird one, but it got my foot in the door with making a physical product, and I knew going into it, it might not result in changing the world, but it got my foot in the door. It got my
what door were you trying to get your foot into?
So, my background's mostly been in the digital space. I'm a designer by trade. I worked at Apple for many years, and I worked on Apple Watch, actually. But it was always I worked with the physical product, but I would be representing them digitally. So it was always art direction and design on the 2D plane. But I love physical products. And with that pad particularly, I just always been doing side hustles my whole life, trying to make things. And with that one, it came to me one day because I have an Audi TT and they're very bubbly. So They have that kind of like round shape to the door. And when I got it, I put my arm out the window a lot, and I was kind of getting into watches, and I don't care. My watches are all scratched up. If you look at them, they're scratched. So it's not necessarily about like keeping them pristine, but it was more just of an annoyance that I was always clinking that metal against metal, and I didn't like it. And I thought about tank pad protectors, which are they're pads that go on your tank pad of a motorcycle. And I know you used to live in San Francisco, right? I was living out in SF then. Yeah. That's when I learned to ride. And I just thought, if they made it's a very peculiar shape, but it's made to fit the tank of a motorcycle. And I was like, well, what would that shape be for a car in this door area? They must have something like that because it annoys me. And it didn't exist, so I thought I'd hack one together. And I was like, wait, it's a simple rubber pad. How hard can it be? Let me make this. And that was the beginning of the journey. But it ended up being harder than I thought. I just decided I'm going to take the plunge and make it. And your question was why? What's the end goal there? It was to make a physical product, to understand how manufacturing works actually on my own, to make those connections. And then also to just kind of get into the watch space, which my whole life I get into hobbies and then I find ways to actually enter into them, even if I haven't been in the industry before, and I'm not afraid to jump in, even if it's not an industry I'm already in. I follow what I'm interested in, basically.
Try to answer this larger question because I think it's important. What is attractive about this space? You said you want to get your foot in the door. You're a designer that could presumably design anything. What is it about the watch collecting space? Because you and a lot of other people like you, and not just in the US, but around the world, want to get your foot in the door in this space. Explain why. What's attractive about it, and why this hobby versus others, as there's many verticals?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a really good question. I think I caught the kind of... So when I started getting to watches, I was actually working... it was post-Apple. I had my own startup, and I was actually in the crypto space, particularly NFTs, which is the most non-physical you can get. But I've always had the collector bug in me, and NFTs are very polarizing. I'm not here to talk about those, but in general, the technology behind it was very fascinating to me as a designer. I wanted to understand how they worked. I enjoyed it. But at a certain point, I definitely felt this feeling that I think a lot of us have over the past 10, 20 years of just slowly wishing for more physical analog products. I think that's an obvious trend that comes and goes. And I think I felt it even stronger as someone that's really in the digital space nonstop. And I really, really, really like perfection. I mean, like it feels really good to me to see precision. And at Apple, they paid for that. They put their money where their mouth is. They would give us, I'd spend weeks on, one image. We could literally fix one pixel in like an 8,000 by 8,000 pixel image. Like that was the only place I've ever been told, let myself go as deep as I wanted to make something perfect. And when I found watches and I understood how deep that went, I didn't realize the depth there.
It goes real deep.
It goes super deep, and the perfectionism behind it, the art behind it, it reminds me of why I like, once in a while going out to a really nice meal, this idea of like, if you give humans the space and time and the resources to make something to the nth degree to their ability, like craftsmanship wise, what can they create? Like I just didn't realize how much there was for watches, and I don't know. It ticks all the boxes for me, as well as the engineering side, which I'm not an engineer by trade, but I love I love mechanisms and stuff. So when I figured that out, I just got deep. I was a collector myself, and anything I get into more than a year or so, I just start to slowly gravitate towards how do I enter the industry, because it's fascinating to me, and I want to add something to it.
That's so interesting that your goal was to sort of align yourself with this area of perfection. And I agree that to a lot of people, especially consumers, the watch is a microcosm of perfection. It's a little space that there's more perfection that can really exist in the real world. And I'm wondering, are there other hobbies like this where perfection is part of the obsession? Because I'm not really sure.
I mean, I definitely think of like, it's tough. I mean, when you think of anything with like high design in the physical space, you think of cars and things like that. There's always crossover there when you need like the perfection of mechanics to work together in particular ways, but you can't really outdo watches. I mean, I always tell people who aren't into watches, one of the first things I talk about is like, I talk about a perpetual calendar. I didn't know that concept. You don't realize when you're in the space how, obvious it is when you're in it, but how it's not a concept that I was aware of, that you can mechanically create a piece of something that analog, i.e. it does not change states in any way. It's all these physical pieces that are put together in a particular way that can track time and understand like a leap year and all those kind of things. That complexity and the precision and that microscale, like that's the kind of stuff that I just feel like it helps people understand, like, oh wow, there's a lot going on. It's not just about creating a pretty dial or whatever. But your question was like, are there other things that have that precision? It's hard to nail down, except for me would be design and working within vectors or working within pixel perfect kind of designs within I do a lot of UI, and I mean, I'm nudging things 1 pixel or 2 pixels. The beauty with 2D and digital is you can be pixel perfect, and you can line something up so it's mathematically perfect. You can never get that perfect in the real world. No matter how you go closer, there's always a jagged line once you get down to atoms, I suppose. So, I mean, that's digital space has perfection like that.
The Wraven product called the Wing 1 is your original product, and it's and now I understand a little bit more about this, because hearing you talk about perfection and looking at this, you really wanted this to be as nice as possible, because putting a sticker on the side of your car can be the ugliest thing imaginable in theory, right? So you took this thing and you wanted to make it elegant. It's got the shape of a little wing. It's got kind of a nice shape to it. It's not just flat. You thought about the texture. You have one that kind of sticks on and one that's magnetic. I'm actually curious what the adhesive is. I want to hear about that. But for the type of product you made, you put about as much effort into it as possible. And if you're the type of guy that is into this type of thing, it's hard to ignore that. I don't know that everyone will, but you took something that could have been a side thought or utterly cheap or just described to work, even though it's not engineered to work. And I if anything, that's why you're on the show. I recognize like, whoa, this guy put like way more work in this than it was probably necessary.
Thank you. I mean, if I'm doing something, I try to do it right. I want to be proud of it. My channel kind of started to take off online when I just kept, making videos about this, being more mysterious. I wasn't even showing my face. And one day I made just a silly video researching the product from an outside perspective, like who made this? with the gotcha at the end being like, oh, it was me. I made this. Like, it's hard to describe the video, but the video is basically me discovering I myself invented this product. It was silly. It got some attention. That's when I started actually selling some of them. And to be frank, it's not a huge seller. It's really weird. But yes, I mean, you can't see this on the actual podcast, but like the box and stuff, I went like crazy all out trying to make this thing like beautiful for a piece of rubber. And I spent like 45 grand or something. And like, it took like a year and a half, way longer than I meant to. And it definitely didn't return. There was no return on investment, but I learned a lot. I have a lot of respect for any product being made just because it was just a slog for a piece of rubber. But I'm proud of it. And that's what at the end of the day, numbers have to work for you to actually make a business, of course. But everything, if I am proud of what I finally made, I fixed things that no one ever saw because not a lot of people bought it. I went through rounds and pushed back because I wanted it to be perfect. And it's not necessarily the best business plan until you're actually selling it. That's what they say. Don't get married to it. Get something out. But I
want to say something on this. Now, I've likened what we do to the entertainment industry. I know that it's not exactly the same thing, but these products, similar to a movie, have to technically work, but their value is in the emotional reason why people want it. Now, you hear a lot of like artists that are maybe like an actor or a writer or a director, and often they'll say, I don't really judge the success of whether or not it made money. I asked myself, was it a good product? And I'm proud of myself if it was. And you hear time and time again this distinction between whether or not you're happy with the outcome and whether or not it was commercially successful. And those things are not always the same. But I think society needs to recognize that for an artistic personality, like a designer or a different type of creator, they want something that they're happy with. If it ends up making money, that's even better, and that allows them to do more. But that's not really the goal. And if it is the goal to make money, you're probably not going to make the best product. There's like a vision that exists in your mind, and you want to execute it as close as possible to what your vision is to make you yourself happy. And that in itself is an achievement, whether or not the public understands it enough, fast enough to fund you doing it more.
That's really well said. I mean, I've probably heard that phrase before. It probably is in the back of my mind, the whole idea of like, I'm proud of it, but I like 100%. I genuinely agree with that. I will say there are times in life where I think, how could someone feel that way? Because of course you want the accolades, or of course you want the outside proof that this was a good idea. But as I've gotten older and more, I guess, secured myself in certain ways, like I genuinely, not in everything in life, I'm not perfect, but in certain pursuits, I have got to a point. There are certain, like when I'm posting more on Instagram now because it's gotten a larger following. There's been certain videos where if you get more of a following or you get reactions, you can get swept up in that. But I can genuinely say I've also felt secure there as time gone on, as like, I'm going to post this. And if I feel good about what I've put into that, it's not fluff. There's something genuine there. I know it's a seed of something I'm proud of. I'm going to feel good about it, even if it doesn't have the perfect hook that makes it take off. And you know what's happened is that they're seeds. And later on, a lot of those videos, now that I've had some more viewers looking back on them, they do well, they do better over time. People go back and they find them. So I feel that way about this product, the Wing 1. I've sold some of them, but regardless of whether it's popped off in the first year or maybe in the future years, or maybe people come back to it. I'm working on the laptop one right now. Maybe that's more applicable. Then people are on there and they try it. Like I know if someone buys it in 3 years, I'm proud of the product still. I still have it. And I'm hoping that those reap rewards. But even if they don't, I do genuinely feel,
how to sell it, right? This is the thing. You can't sell this with online marketing. You have to sell this with in-person. People are at a car show and they see these, and the question isn't, oh, I need that. It's, first of all, what is that? Yeah. It's a little weird. Yeah. So you need, there's a bazillion of these shows all over the place. You can't go to them all, but I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but you should just give these out to as many people who own the types of cars that you like, that you think they should be on, feeling that some of them will presumably put them on their cars. If they have a nice watch and they're at a car event, that's probably the only time that they will actively be thinking, I should use this. So make sure they have your product for free so that others are like, looking at that and be like, I see the wrist out, but then I see the wrist on this thing. Or maybe I don't see the person in the car at all and I see this little wing. What is that? I'm going to ask. And then the explanation. And they're like, oh, do I need something like that? In my opinion, that is, I don't want to say the only way, but the most likely way for you to get that critical momentum of attention that actually means that this can be self-sustaining. You're never going to be a high volume thing, but you need to be known to that group of people, and getting on their radar is impossible unless you're physically in front of them.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on too. I that was part of the plan too. More Gorilla is just like, I mean, it sells it advertises itself because it stands out visually, and it's in a particular place, and it's not necessarily something you'd see there normally. So I agree. And if you see someone that has a car that you like and they have a watch, that crossover is like kind of a big thing, car watch people. So it felt like one of those interesting products that I felt like was at least unique enough that I'm going to make it and see what the world thinks of it. And yeah, I think that's a smart play for it, for sure. The visual.
So who did you have more in mind? Obviously you had a consumer in mind. Was it more a car guy or more a watch guy? Because it sort of has applicability in both. Which one is sort of more on your mind? It
was more the watch, to be honest. I mean, and that's where I took my channel over time too. At first, when I was building the channel, it was like I was, speaking to both car and watch enthusiasts. But me, I like cars. I rode motorcycles a little bit. I enjoy them, but they're not. I wouldn't say I know much about them beyond the fact that I enjoy them and I can respect them. Whereas watches, I've gotten very deep. And I guess the pad itself is not gonna. You're not going to be, I guess the thinking behind it is like, if you're a watch person, you might have a bit of OCD like me, and the clinking of metal and metal annoys you enough that you want to buffer that. The whole thought behind it is watches are meant to be scratched. That's fine. You wear them. In fact, wear them more, because we're going to make certain pads for particular areas that are nicely designed to protect in the extra wear areas. Save the scratches for like the good stories, not just the place where it's always hitting, And so to me, it's that watch owner that's like, yeah, I wear them all the time. In fact, like it'd be nice to keep from like that extra wear, particularly here when I have my arm out the window. And so it came from that perspective.
Why are you so like defending scratches? Obviously you don't like them and don't want them. So like, don't you feel like you need to have a consistent kind of message there?
Because I don't want the brand to be like they're all about like it's not about, I don't mind. I mean, I don't mind some scratches, and I think there's like a naturalness to wearing your watch.
If your
I guess
watch
I don't want to
could stay perfect, you'd keep them perfect, wouldn't you?
That's a good question. I think, yeah, probably, right? If you could just erase scratches at the end of the night, that's true. But at the same time, I guess I don't want to come across as a brand that's about like hyper, I don't even know how to describe it.
It's about visibility. You want to be comfortable for your watch to be visible.
Yes.
You want to see your watch. You buy watches and wear them because you like them. The idea of taking it off and putting it in a box somewhere to protect it irritates you because you're like, then I can't see it. What's the point?
Yep. And the most thing is I don't like the feeling. I don't like the feeling of metal on metal. It feels scratchy.
Like you're causing damage. Bad.
Yeah, you're causing damage. You can feel it. It doesn't feel good. That's why I like the product I'm working on right now, which goes on your laptop. That's the biggest area I take my watch off when I'm typing. It's just metal on metal with MacBook Pro specifically. So like that's the area that's as well where I'm like, I hate it and I don't want to take my watch off. It needs wrist time, It doesn't want to get taken off.
Couple of months, I had the experience of buying a new mouse pad, keyboard, like pad that goes in front of it, like the wrist pads, like a mouse pad. And did the exact same exercise as you. I'm like, I bought one. I was like, this doesn't feel good. Why does this get hot? This is sticky. This doesn't make sense. This is going to wear quickly. I mean, I must have gone through 5 permutations of them, even though I've done this in the past. But like, if you are experiencing a tactile sensation on a repeated or regular basis, it can be quite fatiguing if part of it annoys you. And if you're a typist or something, it makes a lot of sense. If you're some type of machine operator, the closest most humans get these days is really touching something like their car or vehicle, because you touch things on a regular basis, or your phone or computer. Other than that, most people don't have the hammer would be more comfortable if the grip was a little bit different. No one touches anything enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
But you do when you're there shopping. Like if you're buying a hammer, we feel that stuff, but that's the only time you think about it. And
but you don't really need it. You don't really need it.
No.
But so I just think it's interesting. I can see you and others in the car, and I've seen people in their car. It's, the steering wheel, the shifter. Companies that make these products invest a huge amount in making sure that feels good to you, that wears well. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's like, it can be seen as a little bit silly, but at the end of the day, it really changes the experience. It's not something to be undermined. In fact, if anything, when you spend big bucks on anything, you want folks like you to have obsessed over these details. That's what I think a lot of consumers are paying for. And so it goes kind of part and parcel. If you're a watch lover, you both expect this, but also in theory, how to recreate this, because if you're making a product, you know what you expect. And I think it's important to discuss this as being part of the core part of the psychology of being a watch lover. It's easy to say, I love watches, it makes me feel good. But why? Why does it make you feel good? And for a lot of folks, this microcosm of perfection, as well as making sure this experience feels good, is what it's all about. You buy an expensive watch because it makes you feel good. If part of that is blocking you from feeling as good, folks like you are going to try to engineer a solution for it. I remember years ago, there was someone that made a tiny little lock. I think it was Christian Hagen and his colleague, a little lock for certain models of vintage Rolexes. And the whole point was making it a little bit difficult to pickpocket off your wrist. This whole specialized little thing that was for a certain generation of old Rolexes, basically. And it was just designed to make it harder because there was no lock. You could just undo it by tension. So it was a little thing that made it so that someone who with very, very dexterous stealing hands could not discreetly take your watch off. And it was and I remember part of it was this is so ridiculous and silly. But when you look at it, you're for those people, that is the make or break of whether or not I'll wear this. So for you, it's I won't drive and stick my hand out unless I have to worry about it. And I like driving and sticking my hand out.
I hover. I do. I hover. I found
That's
myself
fun
hovering.
to hover.
I think everybody, when they get into watches, they go through this transition of just I call it the spidey sense of the wrist. I didn't care where my wrist was before, but when you're close to doorknobs and stuff, after you've worn nicer watches over time, you just get used to making sure you're staying away from that. That took time to develop, and now that's just permeated me. That's how I exist. I have this extra sense of making sure my left wrist stays away from things, and my car was one of them. And I loved your whole talk on just these high traffic areas where you're resting and touching a lot, in the sense of when you're resting your arms, you're interacting with. And when you're driving, you're resting in specific areas. And I have the Wing 1, obviously, on my car, on my TT. And if I take it off, it does feel kind of naked now. Once I've got used to it, it's not a normal thing. But now that I got used to it, if it's not there, it feels like just raw metal there. I'm something's supposed to be here. For me, that's where my wrist hits. I think, if your wrist doesn't hit there, or if it doesn't have the car shape, it's not going to work for someone. But there's other people like me, then
But think about
that
all the other places in life where someone regularly rests their wrists and wishes it wasn't a scratch hazard or something like that. That's the thing. I have all these little trays and pads and things like that all over the place because I can put a watch down and not have to worry about scratching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. That's what I was thinking with Raven. I feel like it's somewhat not infinite, but Raven, I mentioned, is wrist haven stuck together. That's why it's WRAVEN. And the laptop to me is the most natural place where, even with the laptop design, the actual shape of it avoids where your wrist touches on the laptop, because that area was highly designed by Apple to make sure that over time that wears in a particular way. So the pad is short enough and slim enough to only be the area it needs, which is around the corner and in the corner around the edges. And man, it just feels different. The experience of typing does feel different with my prototype, but it's Alcantara. So it's that soft kind of micro suede, and it just feels like butter. And it's the feeling of using my computer, the experience changes as a watch user. But yeah, I have places all around the house when I take it off to wash the dishes or this or that. I have particular places where, I put it, it's part of the routine. It's part of the ritual.
Let's talk a little bit about the technical elements of the Wing 1, because there's not too much to it, but I'm just curious. Not an expensive product. There's two models. There's one with, I guess, an adhesive pad and one with sort of a combination of adhesive and magnet. One's $25, one's $30. So nothing expensive. I was actually surprised. Usually this stuff is like $300 for like no reason, right?
Yeah.
What is the Wing One made out of, and what did you decide on being the ideal adhesive solution?
So the adhesive I can talk to first was, it's a 3M adhesive. It's like a very thin 3M adhesive that we just went through a couple of things, and I spoke with the manufacturers and landed on one that I knew would work well, like with the heat and the cold. I have mine. I live in New England, so I've had the Wing one I have on right now. I switch mine out sometimes because I have extra, but the one I have on right now, I think I put on last summer. I might put a fresh one on, but it lasts through the whole winter and then back around to summer again. So it sticks great, but it also has it's like a film. So if you're peeling it up, if you look on the site, like there's the page about it, if you peel it up, it just peels up in one go. It's not leaving like a bunch of residue. It does sometimes separate from the rubber itself, but that's fine once you're peeling it up. So it tears away well, and it stays. It's
like a one-time thing, or is it one of those replaceable? You can put it back.
No, I would say it's a one-time. Once you've pulled it up, like the rubber on the pad and stuff's warped a little bit. In getting a piece of whereas the magnet one, which I don't use, unfortunately, because I have an aluminum door, which is something I hadn't even thought of until I started going to that. But the Audis have aluminum. It's not magnetic. So, but the magnetic version is literally, it comes with a Wing One, and then I have a separate package with a magnet. It's just a die-cut magnet that's the same shape as the base, and you take the peel off of the back of the regular Wing One, and you stick that onto the magnet, and now you've got a magnet version of it. So it's 1 millimeter thicker at the base, but it's like a modular system where it uses the same pad, but then you can attach the magnet. It's nothing super fancy, but it works, and it stays on. And that way you can take it on and off. Obviously someone could steal it or whatever, but it just makes it so if someone's like really like, I just want it temporarily, like you said, you're at a car show. Right now there's just black. There to match. Like I figured if I'm going to pick one color instead of going clear, which can yellow and stuff like that, I didn't want to go down that. Black is going to match tires. Everybody has black tires usually, so it'll complement at least one accent color. That's why I went black to start. The idea was if they sell well, I can always do more fun colors or concepts, but most people don't want it to stand out, at first, unless it became some sort of a visual kind of like calling card that you're a watch guy, or a watch gal. But at first I just went black, and then the material is like just an elastomer kind of rubber, soft rubber. I will say that was one area where I probably spent a couple extra grand and months where I went through. You approved like a feel. I wanted a certain suppleness and softness and bendiness to it, and then when we went to finally get the first batch, they had made the first batch of 2,000 or so I made. It had slowly got harder over time, and I didn't realize that. And the sheen wasn't right. I wanted a soft sheen. And all of a sudden we had 2,000 of them that were wrong. I was like, this is not what the sample was. So we had to, they charged me less because but they scrapped and we started over to get. And would people know? Probably not, but I knew. And it's just like a rubber soft material that's matte texture on it.
5 years after someone applies it, what condition is it going to be in?
To be honest, I can't answer that because I made them 2 years ago. But I will say that, based on the testing that we did from, that through the manufacturer and then got vetted, that it's supposed to last through all weather, like totally fine. So I can't genuinely say that because it hasn't been 5 years yet. But I would say that like, I kind of think of it in a way that it's definitely going to hold up perfectly fine for a year, which is how I've used it. And for me, I like it. I like putting a fresh one on for $25. I just reset it. So, but it's fine. I mean, I could leave it for another 3 years. I'm fine. But I'm sure it hasn't shown any sign of wearing. So,
but that's something you think about. You want it to look good now and into the future. And I think a lot of products like this don't age well. And I think that especially when it comes to selling to this audience, they want things that have that durability as well as that wear resistance. People like buying sapphire crystal because it's scratch resistant. People like buying ceramic cases because it doesn't wear. This one, if you tell someone it's wear resistant or it's simulated to last for 10 years or whatever without coming apart. I mean, I've done this long enough now where I look at my watch box and I find really old rubber straps and things like that. and some of them disintegrate. As you know, natural rubber, it comes apart. I don't know enough about the chemical science to explain why one does disintegrate, another one doesn't. But I've noticed that over sometimes, and again, I'm aging myself here. I've been collecting watches I've been doing this for almost 20 years, but collecting watches for longer. Some of those early watches, again, it's not just deterioration, it's completely come apart. So if you have any experience with that and you say these are rubber, nobody wants to have this like decomposing rubber thing that gets stuck to their car paint, you know what I mean? And stuff like that.
Yeah, totally.
By talking about that, and again, it's the same thing. You've had a high quality or low quality rubber strap. You know what it's like sort of over time. And I think that's what's interesting in the watch space. It's not just things are engineered to look nice and work well, but they're engineered to do it for a long period of time. And that's, I think, another attraction factor that goes part of the perfection stack of qualities.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And as speaking to a watch audience, I think that hits home even more. And I think that's actually also why another reason I got into watches, which is probably an answer you get all the time, but like how, things nowadays just aren't built to last. And it feels nice to put some money into something that will be here. You pass down to your children or something like that. We don't make a lot of things like that anymore. So totally agree with that. I wish I could give like the perfect answer that I've tested it for 5 years, but I basically asked, as far as the compound goes to make sure it's durable and doesn't fall apart. But I think that's a great pushback. I think that's a great call out. And I can't answer that honestly and say that yes, in 5 years it's perfectly fine. But I will say it's held up for 2 years fine, especially the samples I still have.
So when did you start Wraven Labs exactly?
I started it on probably 2.5 years ago is when I probably 3.5 years ago is when I started making the Wing 1. I was still working at I was no longer working for myself in the crypto space, but I was freelance. No, I was actually working full time for UI design for another website. And, I just knew that I wanted to do something entrepreneurial again. And I started that. And then about a year in was when I finally launched it and I started making my channel. And then I started on Instagram. I have Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So I started kind of trying to advertise it. And then I would say, then basically like, I was like selling some of them. A couple videos did well. Again, I've mentioned this, but like, as far as my trajectory goes, the channel built, I got more connected in the space. I met people and I feel like I have a few avenues I'm trying to take Wraven Labs now, but I knew that the laptop pad, it's been about 1.5 years. I've been working on the laptop pad. I essentially thought it was going to be done in October of this past year, 2025. So I quit my full-time job in anticipation of focusing on it. And I've been basically full-time on Wraven, my channel and freelancing on the side since then, but the laptop pad's still not done. So yeah, Wraven, the channel has been about 2 years, Wraven Labs. And then the product's the laptop product's still not out. So that's what I'm going towards. And I'm just full-time on it right now.
Nathan, what would you say to other people that are interested in being a watch hobby entrepreneur? Not necessarily starting a watch brand, that we'll talk about that. I know that's something on your mind, but people who think it's a lucrative space, an exciting space, a fun space. I'm not saying it is or isn't any of those things, but now that you've been doing it for a little while, what would you advise or report to someone who's very early in the stage of that process?
A couple of things come to mind. One, on the positive side, is that over the past 5 months or so, I've actually met people in the space more in person, spoken to people. I went to Watches and Wonders. I got invited to go to that and do all that stuff. And there are so many like actually genuinely good people in the space that don't just say it, but act in the way of like rising tide lifts all, like not a zero sum game kind of vibe. Like I genuinely get good vibes from people in the space that even if they find out, maybe I'm working on accessories or they think my channel's funny or whatever, but I'm actually working on maybe potentially doing a watch, they're encouraging. I find that pretty surprising and cool. Like it's one thing to say that, but most people I've met in space are encouraging and everybody's encouraging. The other side of it I would say is that like anything in life, I had a trajectory in mind. When I made the Wing 1, I hoped within a year and do this and that. And it's taken a long time. And with anything you do, and if you're going to sell a product as well, like people want to know you're not just in it for a cash grab, and you can't fake time. And the kind of like, I guess, fruits of the labor of the video or the content or the physical products I've been making still have been taking time to mature. And although certain things happen in an instant, you had to have been doing things for months kind of in the dark. And it wasn't all glamorous, you know, as you hear with any story. There was moments where I just was like, okay, I can't cut this. But I would say, you know, if you're in it for the right reasons and you take it slow and you're creating in the way that you can uniquely do you, and take your time with it and see where like paths lead. That's kind of what I've been doing, and it's started to come to fruition. That would be, I guess, my advice.
Do you have the ability to make cosmetically different versions, or once you have a material and stuff, it's difficult to make like limited runs with special colors, printing on top of them? I'm sure you've thought about, you know, cosmetic variations, but there's also real, we'll call them industrial limitations.
Yeah, I mean, for the Wing One in particular, like you can do any color under the sun. I did do a yellow version because my colors were black and yellow. I did a small run of those, and I love collecty stuff. You know, I was, you know, raised on Pokemon in the early days, and like there's a certain like level of rarities and liking those things that runs through watches that I love. I love that stuff. So, you know, with the pad itself, solid colors would be easy. With the laptop one, I'm thinking ahead on that one because it's basically two sandwiched materials that come together. And the top color, what kind of imprint? I would love to make rarer or collaborative things, or, you know, I thought about the Wing One and also the laptop pad where, you know, maybe you have to have a particular, if you partnered with a certain watch, imagine like Norcane, they're very particular, like you think of their, you know, the teal one. Imagine that it would come with a Wing One or come with a laptop pad that matches, that tone to tone matches the same watch. Things like that I think could be quite cool. You can only get it if you get the watch with it and you know that the tones match. Things like that. I love the idea of, but again, I feel like with the Wing One and with the laptop, I'm still trying to make sure people, you know, it's the right product, it's built well first before I go too crazy with that stuff. So besides for like a one-off color for the Wing One, I don't have any particularly collect one, but I love that. I love that angle. It's definitely in my blood to do something like that. You
bootstrap this, which is very admirable, but that also means that ideas can't be as ambitious as they would otherwise be. If this was very successful, or someone said, Nathan, here's a bunch of money, you know, design something interesting, what are some of your aspirations? Not necessarily specific products, but, you know, problems to design a tool against, or certain types of things are like, whoa, I can't wait for that to exist, or I wish that for this. And again, don't spoil anything, but I'm sure you've thought about what you would do with more resources.
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about keeping it grounded in the pad kind of Raven area for now, yeah, like there's a couple other areas I've thought about. I would love to go to the nth degree with all of these products where, you know, I've made some t-shirt designs as well and stuff, but in anything I made, those t-shirts, if you buy one, like there's all the packaging, I've particular tissue paper that goes with it, stickers that goes, all these things. Like, I guess what I think of if I knew that people, first of all, I would want to know people want it. I want to make sure I'm working towards something that people genuinely want. I think one like guiding thing for me is not adding fluff to the world. There's already so much stuff out there. And I want to find something where there's a genuine crossover of something that's novel that I feel passionate about and people actually want it. So if I had all the money in the world and I knew I had a product that people genuinely want, and say it was, you know, say the laptop pad or the Wing One, it would be like systems for it and, you know, creating other products that are in a similar kind of vein of watch protection in these hyper kind of niche areas that are designed to the T. So, you know, if you buy this one, you know that if it came from Raven, this also is going to be overly thought and overly engineered for the smallest thing. I would say that would be it. But I think that, you know, we just touched on this too, but as well as like the variants and like systems there of like creating special variants that come with particular watches or certain collaborations like that. I think would be awesome, but I would always want to watch how I scale, no matter how much money I got. It's sometimes not even about that. It would be more creating the right demand, making sure people want it, and creating the right product, even if I had all the money in the world. It's a kind of a vague answer, but.
No, I mean, look, you also don't want to spoil ideas you may be working on or accidentally, give someone the heads up on it. I just think it's interesting because I think what's attractive to this space isn't just I like it, but I see a fruitful place to explore, to design, to do things that haven't been done before, to improve on something which has already existed. And I think that's what attracts a lot of people. It's an established hobby, but there also appears to be new things you can do. I mean, one of the things that fascinates me, for example, is so many people design a watch. You really ask them, like, why'd you design it? Why? And they say, well, I bought a bunch of other watches and I just couldn't find the one for me. So I had to design it. Is theirs materially different than anything else out there? Not really. But like they came to the conclusion that the only solution to their exacting standards was to just completely come up with a new design, for better or worse. But given that there's been so many watches throughout history, or that there's available in the market, that someone keeps saying, I got to do a new one for myself. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. It's a bit chaotic as well. But I think it's so interesting. So I just recognize that's sort of a big part of the appeal, right?
Yeah, that dreamer mindset of like, I have something to show to the world and I want to make it, even if there's already a bunch of watches out there already. I think that what I would want to add to the world with anything I'm making too is like a little bit of I guess like I like unique angles and creative execution and maybe a little bit of left field kind of thinking, but packaged in a way that's palatable and not trying as hard. Like, trying to explain how I'm trying to say this, but if you've seen if you watch any of the videos on my like Instagram or something of like complications that I've been making up, there's this like weird twist on pushing against norms and doing it in a different way, but without being boisterous, I guess might be the right word, not being too loud. They're somewhat hidden. I did a lot of like magic growing up. I was a magician. I like would do some, small parties, things like that. And the delivery for me with that was always, what I liked about magic is it's physical, it's in space, it's close, using physical objects. And I always liked the more street magic stuff, which was physical product, like physical objects that you're familiar with, not like a random crazy box that you don't know what it does. You take those things, you're doing it in this small moment. And my delivery with those was always in a way of like, I don't want to build it up. Like, it's not like a showman on stage. It's more like I just kind of fell into this trick and now it's kind of bedazzling a little bit. And that's kind of how I like products, where you might wrap a lot of thought, or there might be a quirky angle, but it's not revealed right away. There's certain complications I've made that like it almost looks normal until the complication happens and then something quirky happens, but it's not in a way that's trying to show off. It just is, and it's just a delightful moment. So in anything I make, like even this weird wing one thing, it wasn't trying to be loud. It was trying to be like you said at the beginning, like, what is that? It already is itself kind of, weird. And then, but it's not stand out, it's meant to flow. It's meant to look aerodynamic. Like maybe it was already there, but I've never seen that. Because I think people like to be different, but they don't want to be too showy. At least that's how I typically am with what I get. I want to have something unique, but I don't want it to be like so loud that it's screaming at you like it wants attention.
Yeah, I want to comment on what you're saying, because I think it's important. You're talking about a level of product that goes beyond the physical item and talks about how to communicate it visually. Obviously, this is the area where you're a specialist. But I think it's a niche area that most people don't understand. They take it for granted when it works well, and they don't understand how to make it. There's a lot of products out there that suffer from not having what you've done to your product. Maybe at the end of the day, they're a good idea, but when you look at the thing, when you see their marketing, you go to their website, like none of that's clear to you. To tell a consumer very quickly that something is interesting, they might want it, it's cool, it's super hard to do. And it's not, I think, celebrated enough throughout society. It's not discussed. And a lot of products in the space, a lot, especially watches or even entire brands, in my opinion, would do so much better if they were able to do that online. Talk about their brand, the virtues better. I'm constantly having discussions with brands where I'm like, the technology is cool, but you don't do it any service by how you talk about it, or you're hiding all the best stuff, or like, why does your page bury all the leads? Like, this is an ongoing issue I have, even with the biggest brands, not just startups. The mentality that you and your sort of professional colleagues have is, it's not totally foreign. There just isn't really even a name for it in places in Switzerland. And I'd love to see more brands take those extra steps, because it is just extra steps, to say, okay, now we have a nice product. Now let's create a nice visual packaging and experience that explains to people why they want it through their, again, visual experiences by seeing it. And these days, with how competitive things are, I think that's so important. And I just think that so many amazing products out there would do so much better if there was a better story created around them when it comes to how they were shaped, the product pages. I mean, you know, again, I know I'm rambling a bit here, but I think this is such a promising and untapped area. So I love when you come and do it so well. I hope other people notice that and are able to apply that to, you know, similar products in the space.
Thank you. Yeah. I've said this since
it's
early
your training,
days in
right? It's for your training.
Yeah. Presentation is like key to be able to present things in the right light, in the right way, the right visuals, right? Like, you can have the same exact product and completely different feelings of how you feel about that product based on how it's, you know, presented to you, of course. And that's that is a huge area that if you do it right, it's simple and it's clean and you don't even notice it. But if you don't do it right, people just don't know. I do think that's like a reason I'm also fascinated by the watch space is it feels like it's a traditional space that's as old as time, but it also has a lot of space to be innovative still in a lot of ways, especially around how the stories are told, or like, how do you be, you know, like Studio Underdog's a great example of, like, you know, talking to Richard. I think you interviewed him recently too. Like,
yep,
that's a great representation of like a brand that can have fun in a way that kind of bucks against traditional, like the traditional sense, but it still, you know, still takes itself seriously. Like, that's great. I think that kind of stuff, as we evolve, our tastes and trends change, like that stuff's going to work its way through the watch space in an interesting way. So yeah, I love that stuff. I love when you see like weird or certain types of advertising that you typically only see, you know, in one space you're used to, not just the jewelry space, but used on a watch. I love bringing those kind of different, and the more people that are in other spaces that come into watches, I'll tell you, I mean, you know this too, I'm sure, like the people that follow you, that start following you on YouTube or whatever, you see someone follow you, they come from so many different walks of life. It's a big unifier. Watches are like, it's the followers I have are like certain like sports athletes or doctors or different things, and you just see all walks of life. So it's cool that there's so many flavors to a watch collector, and I think as we bring those in, but you have to do it in a way that people can relate to. I think you were mentioning this on your last podcast. Like, you can't just make it all about you and expressing some unique thing about yourself. It needs to be relatable, and people need to see themselves in it. You need to be making it for others too. And so I do try to find linear threads that go through something that we can all relate to, almost like a comedian does, right? Like, oh, we all experience this, and therefore I use that as a jump off point for some idea. And then people can latch onto that idea and be like, I relate to this. And then it's more of a, hey, we all relate to this expression versus just a beautiful dial or whatever. Some concept to wrap around that others can relate to, I find is always powerful too.
I almost feel like we have to have an entire different discussion about your social media content, because it seems actually quite different than the product stuff. And I was like, let's just talk about that another time. But I want your feedback on a particular type of product that exists in the market. It's quite niche as well. I have mixed feelings on it. I don't even know if you've encountered it. Maybe you have, but it sort of like is in the same kind of like bucket as the Wing One. I've seen out there people that sell a kit, or they'll do it custom, where they take a watch and they literally wrap it in a protective film, like a transparent plastic. And it kind of like immediately reminds me of the whole joke about, the old person that buys the couch and doesn't take off the plastic wrapping or puts a plastic protection on it. And it's like, yes, it's keeping the couch clean, but it doesn't look the same as it. So it's, not covered. It's a very practical thing, right? If it's scratch resistant, if it sort of can ward off little nicks and things like that, it can keep the watch looking perfect. But then at the same time, you kind of look like you're wearing a watch with the wrapping still on it. Actually, it may not be that visually. Sometimes those films are actually hard to tell. But I imagine they have they change the light, the way that it plays with the metal. So what is your opinion on this? The wrapping your watch, so to say, even in a transparent film to protect it. Cool idea, too silly, too much of a drawback, hard to do practically, one by one, wrapping the watch so it looks nice. I'm just curious, someone like you, what are your thoughts on this weird kind of area?
It's funny because you're bringing me back to, you asked earlier about how I framed this thing and why I'm avoiding saying we should just avoid scratches altogether. And you're reminding me now where I originally started finding my language from the brand. And I actually made a video about the Wing One and its invention. And at one point in the video, it was like me talking through it in some of my early social media videos. And I was like, I'm not saying you need to protect it. And I literally show one of those couches with the plastic on, exactly like you said. So what I would say is, number one, I never ever, is another one of my things, is I never want to poo-poo on any other brand and what they're doing and the work that goes into it. So for all the people, brands out there that make that stuff, I think hats off to them. I think it's pretty invisible once you get it on there. And so for some people, that might be what they want to do. I do think this gets into the storytelling a little bit and when I was building the Wing One brand, the reason I leaned into hey, scratches are okay is because I think we all want to feel that way. We don't want people to think that we're trying to be too picky with it. And if you look at any of the advertising online for those, one, they're pretty much the same. They're like, protect your assets. And they're very inspirational and kind of protect for this and that. And it doesn't feel like an aspirational thing. It can feel kind of goofy. It kind of reminds me of VR is so cool, but to put on the glasses and stuff, it never got over that hurdle of it feeling a little bit dorky. So I think that there's that element to protecting it. And so I think we can all agree that we don't want to add more scratches than we should. But how do you do it in a way that feels like it aligns with your soul, I guess, if you look at some of those comments on them, there's this immediate kind of aversion to it, just wear your watch, and I think we can agree with that. We get that. There's that part of me in there, but there's another part of me that agrees with what they're making. It's just, you don't always want to show it. You don't want to admit that I don't want it to get scratched, because that's, I don't know, maybe embarrassing or something, but we all don't want to scratch our watch.
Wait, but why is that embarrassing? Because in most times when people buy something nice, keeping it good looking is a concern. People baby their cars. They don't want to go over a dip too much. And a lot of people are weird about it. People like you and I, if we see a scratch or a defect, it can consume us. Most people might not even notice it. We can keep us up at night. It can be the difference between a good or a bad day.
Yeah, but I would guess I guess I would argue that a lot of people don't want to be seen that. I care about it, but I don't necessarily want to flag that it's a huge issue to me. I mean, if you imagine going over a bump and you're sitting in a car with someone and then they're worried about it, or they're just nah, it's cool. Even if internally they're oh no, it is, I am worried.
So you want to project strength and coolness.
You want to project that hey, this expensive watch that I really care about.
Am I too comfortable with my neuroses? Is that the problem?
What?
Am I too comfortable with my neuroses?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that maybe I'm too worried about what people think. Maybe you're hey, I just express how I'm feeling. I'm I feel the same way as you. I'm just too afraid to express it. I don't know. I guess I just think that there's this level of, we care. We all know we care, but we don't want to show too much that we care, because it's not there's this, there's this element of also with watches, wear them. They're tool watches. There's that whole thing, which I also agree with. And I don't want to scratch it. I want to avoid it a little bit, but I don't want to protect it to the point that I'm never using it. And I'm never we're talking about the feel, the buttery feel of a nice link bracelet and stuff. you're not going to get that if you put plastic in between them. Like, that's the stuff you're going to miss. And like, I take the phone case off my phone a lot because it just feels so much better to use the raw phone. But do I wish I kind of had a phone case on if I drop it? Yeah. But I just like the raw
So
watch.
you,
And that was
you
another
worked at
reason why.
Apple, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Explain this to me. I've never figured out. Why does the iPhone need to be as close to as slippery as a bar of soap as possible?
Well, first of all, I didn't design the iPhone, unfortunately.
I know it wasn't you, but you're closer to than me.
I will say they think about, man, for watches is what I was on. I worked on Apple Watch, and it was the S3, 4, and 5, I believe, is when I was on it. And I was originally making the images for it, but I eventually became the art director. And there, you get to go into the industrial design department. And actually, like, our job, as the art director for Watch was like, look at the fresh new product, make sure you understand exactly how it's supposed to look, all the color, the metal nuance, if it's titanium, this and that, and then create the image that everybody else is going to go off of, and then make sure that everybody follows that. And you got to make sure the industrial designers are happy with how it looks on screen, and then you carry that forward. So my point is, going through that and actually peeking behind the curtain of the ID department there, they think about so much that I can't answer exactly why it's sleek or something. Maybe it's just the feel, the look. But
traction against skin is not one of them.
Yeah, I don't know, but I would say, I did the matte glass in the back. This is nice, but yeah, you're right. It can slip on the back.
It's designed to slide out of your head. And again, there's no better explanation than bar of soap.
Yeah, it's true. I will say that they have I'm sure the person that did it has an answer, and they've thought about it for years, but I think a lot of is aesthetics. The feel is there for sure, but as far as iPhones, it's like you want something that feels beautiful and looks beautiful and captures light. This is a bit style over substance,
in my opinion. I get why they do it. I'm being playful.
I can agree with that.
But if the number one accessory sold is a device to help you hold the thing, then I think it's kind of a problem.
Fair. That's fair.
Like, imagine if you couldn't drive a car without something wrapping the steering wheel. You're like, why do they keep designing it that way?
That is so true, to sell a product and then sell the thing that you need in order to use it properly. And they're
making some of the money, but there's a whole universe of third-party, case makers. I just think it's hilarious because it used to be like, you want to protect it. Now it's like, just to use it properly so it doesn't break the first day.
Yeah. It's true. It's like now that's the norm. So you just have to put a case on it. I know it is funny. It's another industry. It creates another industry.
Every time I get a phone, the ritual is case and screen protector. I never even touch the phone. Maybe a button on the side, but I just think it's imagine with a watch. You bought like a gold Rolex. You're like, okay, never touching the gold, right? Maybe not even seeing it, just gonna wrap it all away. It's a weird thing.
That's what I'm saying. I think adding the pad to the areas that you're annoyed about and not onto the thing saves you from that. Like, I have nothing on my phone. I like the raw. I like to, as long as I broke the back of it, there's risk, but I enjoy, if I have it for 2 years or 3 years and I never got to hold it and touch it, what a waste. That's part of it.
What about naturally wear resistant materials? You got ceramic and sapphire crystal, I mentioned. There's other ones there. Are you attracted by this idea? And I think the Japanese are by far the best at it. If you want a culture that consistently feels that part of luxury should be durability of aesthetics, something kind of looking similar to the way it was purchased, the Japanese beat the Swiss all the time. But I always subscribe to this idea that you should be buying a watch that in most ways should look very new several years from now, because that's part of what you're paying for. I like that. Not everyone agrees. What are your feelings on some of these materials?
Yeah, I agree. If I'm looking at a watch and it's not sapphire, if it's like some sort of composite, that's enough for me to just not buy it. So a scratch on the crystal is enough, is something that I think about. I'm going to have this for many years to come. It's nice. When you have sapphire crystal, it essentially feels like, okay, I might get scratches on the metal, which you can polish here and there if you want, but the crystal is going to be pretty good unless I chip it. And that'll be enough for me to not buy a watch. So I'm 100% on board with that. And I also like things feeling like they felt from day one. However, I do like, we all like certain age things, especially if things patina well. So I think there's space in the watch space for things to age in particular ways, and maybe like biased ways, and you're thinking about time and letting things change. There's like some like, is it Oris that makes the brass watch that like Patina's like, that's part of the body for it.
Oh, there's a lot of bronze watches out there.
Yeah,
and that
or bronze. Yeah. Things like that. Like there's something interesting there. But yeah, I would say I'm on board though because like if it's not sapphire crystal, it is enough for me to not purchase it because I don't want to get scratches. So.
And again, we're almost out of time. My last thing I want to talk about quickly is the laptop protectors, which I think actually is probably a little bit more popular in terms of its need than the car thing, even though it's less sexy presentation. Why is that hard to engineer? It seems like it'd be a simple thing, but everyone I talk to that makes even a computer accessory just goes on and on about all the little problems. Describe for someone the hidden areas, of the complexity, and then you can, tease the release of this product.
Sure. Nice tee up. Thanks. Well, number one is I started from a place of actually like, how would I use this? Where would I use it? One thing I mentioned is that having the footprint small enough so it doesn't mess with where your palm hits all the time. That's going to really get a lot of wear. And I didn't want to mess with what's already there for your MacBook. So I avoided that area, which started, number one, making the silhouette shorter. Number two is that when you come in with your watch to type, it's not just on that area. It's the sharp corner and around the lip a little bit. So actually on the edge of the laptop. So to create a pad that follows two planes in a way, like obviously now you need a 3-dimensional shape. You can't just do a 2D pad. You need something that can conform around the lip, not just the front, but the side as well. So imagine like a corner shape that hugs the corner of the laptop. Number three, once you do that, I don't know what number I'm on, but I'm numbering whatever. When you shut the laptop, it needs to still be able to shut. So if this thing's wrapping around the corner, you have your gasket there. There's a little bit of magnetic enclosure so that it still snaps shut. Those kind of like tolerances was a huge deal. Like we found that it needs to be essentially under 1 millimeter, if not less, in order for the clamshell of the top of the case to shut. And then material. I mean, I started thinking that this product was going to be, if you look at some of my older videos, it was going to be a rubber, a material similar to the Wing 1 that fits seamlessly and just sticks onto the corner of the laptop. But rubber and stuff, grips different. And actually, we settled now on Alcantara, which I'm happy about because I have a bunch of samples here that every one I tested how it feels against the watch and stuff. And a lot of people have sent me in the DMs, hacky setups where they've taped down microfiber pads or microfiber like glass case sticks and stuff. So that gives me, I think there's a couple other products out there too that have tackled this, and I wish them luck too. But I think that the shape of mine, the material, and hopefully the quality of how it, it all comes together. It literally had metal in it at one point. There was a metal plate to help with the magnetic enclosure. We found that didn't need. And then if you had metal in between sandwiching two materials together and you're trying to weld, it would burn through the material. So there's all these issues that I didn't even think about for a less than 1 millimeter pad. But we are getting there. We're close. I would say we're still probably a couple months out. We're in the final stages. And then I think for this one, with the Wing 1, I launched it in secrecy, just hoping people would come. And I've learned over time that that's not how you do things. With this one, I'll be doing a Kickstarter and giving more information about it as it gets closer, essentially. So that's
wonderful.
The long and short of it.
Nathan, please let everyone know what the website is and where they can learn more about you and the brand on the internet and social media.
Sure. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all with Wraven Labs, but Wraven is WRAVEN, Labs, LABES. And then same thing, ravenlabs.com, WRAVEN, LABS. That's all my places. Thanks for having me.
This has been the Superlative Podcast interview with Nathan Clapp. Nathan, thank you so much.